I was just down with my kids yesterday fishing, and I loved it. We're at the end of a small jetty, and you could imagine just a blue sea, clouds in the sky, and it was just us on the end of the jetty. And I got to practice peripheral vision. Quite a simple thing. You see, a lot of the times your eyes are focused on something. Maybe they're focused on the computer screen. Maybe your eyes are focused on me. Maybe your eyes shift focus onto different people. A lot of the times we have our eyes and we're focused in on things. So very, very, very short exercise for you before we get into it. Very, very short exercise. What if you were to look to the far left and look over to the far right? That's it. Okay. Now, what if you are to relax your vision, relax, and just allow your vision to expand so you can see out to the left and the right at the same time? Simple. Simple. Now, if you can, relax your eyes, take your vision all the way out to the left and the right. And maybe up and down, all at the same time. So you're able to take in perhaps the whole room in front of you all at the same time. And notice how it has a different effect. And although no one said anything, notice how your breathing has changed. Anyone's breathing changed? Try that next time you're outdoors. And I'm sure you've had these occasions where you've been maybe on a jetty or on a beach or in a park in any city in the world. And you're in a park and people walk past and you naturally see them. Or you see the dog, you see the bird, you see that, you see that, you see everything. So it's a matter of taking in everything at the same time. It's like nervous system down and everything. Now, if you do this in a park or like me with the jetty, it was absolutely surreal. It was beautiful. And I've done this in training rooms. And we do this in a lot of training rooms, or maybe with hypnosis, we may try it. Maybe with deep trance identification, we may try it. Doing deep trance identification, we may enter the peripheral vision before we enter our model. But just doing it in nature was just absolutely beautiful.
Hi there, Adrian here, and this is a video from a Zoom session that we do. We do these Zoom sessions every Sunday, and we take questions and answers from the audience. Some of our students, some of our members. We never know what questions are coming up, so I'm always excited to do these sessions, and I hope to see you at one of them. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below and check out the other playlists that we have. Thank you, enjoy.
All right, so I'm sure a lot of you guys saw that the topic today is multiple intelligences. Multiple intelligences, and some people are more aware of what the subject is than others. But in a nutshell, in a brief nutshell, we might have academic intelligence. We might have emotional intelligence. Leadership intelligence. And leadership intelligence is probably about leading, and emotional intelligence is probably about emotions, and academic intelligence is probably about academics. And some people have all kinds of different intelligences. What intelligences have you heard of? Off the top of your head, what intelligences do you know? IQ, EQ, what's MQ and SQ?
S for spiritual intelligence, M for musical. It's
musical
basically
or moral, yep.
all our senses. That's the Howard's model. It has been updated. And when I studied it, I think there were 6 types of intelligences. Now, must be, because there's also spatial.
Spatial intelligence.
PQ is physical, so the body, basic body.
Yeah,
Yes.
physical intelligence.
Yeah.
Not that positive intelligence, marketing gimmick. Physical.
Adrian, I've had one quoted to me recently, which I've started to come to grips with, called perceptive intelligence. And again, it's the ability of the mind to be directly linked to the eyes and the ears and all of the senses, so that a different reality view is conceived. It's quite interesting. I'm open to it.
So it's kind of like the ability for your eyes,
all senses, to be utilizing all senses to be able to get a picture of something total in the moment.
Woo.
It's got me in. I'm intrigued. I haven't gone any further.
And William, could you explain intuitive intelligence?
Well, if you have self-confidence in one's own being, and one is able to attune to one's own body in certain degrees, just let it happen, man. It's that's intuitive. It's intuition, really, basically, isn't it? I'm saying it's very difficult to put intelligence into intuition, because you've got 2 variables. So intuitive intelligence is intuition. That's how I would refer to it anyway.
Okay. It works. It works. Do we have any others? Without Googling. I've seen the ethical intelligence. I saw it as moral intelligence. Same, I think. Any others coming through? I haven't seen it. What about like consciousness?
Yeah.
What about willpower? Cultural intelligence. Now, when we have cultural intelligence and cross-cultural intelligence, we could possibly do sort of a few things. We could have interpersonal and intrapersonal. Cultural intelligence, my culture. Other cultural intelligences. Being able to perceive things inside and being able to perceive things outside. Golden Seed, if you got your microphone on, can you elaborate a little bit on that awareness intelligence?
I guess for awareness is being able to catch the movement and then express it, just letting yourself and others and the surroundings be more visible and like an invisible way.
Wonderful.
To be quick. Yeah.
Thank you. And then Golden Seed, if you could while you're there as well, what about spiritual intelligence? I think you wrote spiritual intelligence before.
Spiritual intelligence, yeah, I guess it's the connection. You are connected with a higher power or higher being, that the life is not about us. There's something else more than life. So it's a direct communication with the universe. Yeah.
Beautiful. And now with this awareness intelligence and spiritual intelligence, all your beliefs are respected and your culture is respected, okay? If you have a spiritual belief along the lines of a particular line of thought, that's totally okay here. Yeah? We respect everyone's differences, and we know a lot of people will have different definitions in here of spiritual and whatnot, and that's perfectly okay here. Now, what we're actually kind of looking at here today, it's a model by Stephen Rudolph. He created this in about 2008, but other people have different models as well of multiple intelligences. As someone mentioned before, Howard Gardner. I haven't seen Howard Gardner's work, but I have seen another form of multiple intelligences by Ken Wilber. Yeah, Ken Wilber is quite a leader in the space, but Ken Wilber I don't think he created his own, he elaborated on different ones. Now, Ken Wilber elaborated on willpower intelligence. And not everyone will really agree with that, but it works. Some people seem to be able to be really intelligent and figure things out in relationship to willpower. Some people seem to really be able to figure things out with perhaps awareness or spirituality. And if the model works, it works. But Stephen Rudolph created one around 2008, and his has been used by about 100, 200,000 people, 20, 30 countries worldwide. This test we use more with individuals, professionals, and what I personally find it really good for is career planning. They will also say career planning, I think career transition, life balance, recruitment, corporate recruitment, fitting people in the right places. And it's also really good for figuring out, what kind of jobs and lifestyle would be more satisfying. There's a variety of different tools out there, and I wonder, do we have any Gallups people in here? Yay, okay, we've got one Gallups. Gallups is, again, different. And beautiful. I've done the multiple natures test and I've done the Gallups test. And if someone I trust deeply brings up another test, I'll look into it and I will go into it because it might allow me to learn something new. Bernadette just mentioned DISC. Yep, done DISC. Who's done DISC? Okay. Myers-Briggs. Great. See, all of those tests, we get to learn stuff about ourselves. My personal preference, I was a big Myers-Briggs fan. I did the DISC training. I'm not a huge DISC fan. I didn't do the Gallups training, but I did the Gallup's test and I got coached by a Gallup's coach for maybe 6 weeks or something. It was absolutely great. So if you're passionate about growing yourself and developing yourself, get into those things. Okay, get into it. Check them out. Now, I don't sell or deal with the multi-natures, but I'll show you what it looks like. And let me just do a quick screen share. This is a multiple natures intelligence. Now, what I really like about this is a guy that created it. He's completely genuine. He spent most of his life living in places like North India in the mountains. So you can see the website here. You can check out more about it. See, what I really love about Stephen, maybe it'll say it right here. Check out his story. He ended up spending 2 decades in India, fluent in Hindi, immersed in traditional philosophy, and eventually cracked the code of the ancient Vedic scripts. And he came up with his work. Now, when you want to do this test, you can't actually just do it. You got to go and you take a test, and you got to do it with a certified practitioner. So one thing that makes this test a bit better than some of the others is you fill out some of the questions, but then you have a longer session with someone like Dr. Preet, and he goes through your results and works with you to calibrate them. Sometimes people do a personality test or a psychometric assessment, and the questions aren't always exactly precise. That's the English language or any language. So sometimes we answer questions slightly wrong, not in line with the intent of the question. And it could just be the wording or something. So you do the test online, and then you work with the multiple natures intelligence practitioner like Dr. Preet. And then you work through with him and you get the tests adjusted. Through this process, we find out your top intelligences and your top natures. They've split them up into intelligences and natures, 10 intelligences, 9 natures. The 10 intelligences they use are like the musical intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence. These intelligences are absolutely wonderful for jobs, obviously, but the natures are a little bit different. You see, someone might have an intelligence for doing specific work, but they may have a preference or they call it a nature to do something else. And in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, we could see the natures more as meta programs or a combination of meta programs. The multiple natures, they have defined their list of 10. And in their list of 10, they have gross body, perhaps someone that does yoga or functioning with the body and maybe other people's body, and fine body. Fine body could perhaps be a painter or an artist. Strong coordination between hand and eye. Quite different from gross body. Interpersonal, the ability to understand and communicate and interact with others. Intrapersonal. Now, I'd like to ask you a question. What's more important to you? making your strengths stronger, or fixing up any weaknesses? You know the old saying, the chain breaks at the weakest link. But on the other side of the house, you know, someone like Michael Jordan, he's well known for his basketball, not his golf. He's not known for his artwork. Anybody like to chime in here? Do you work on your strengths or do you work on your weaknesses? Jay, then Bernadette.
I think we work on our weaknesses because it's those which manifest us most perceptively within us, because that's when something goes wrong, that's when we realise, whereas we don't tend to congratulate ourselves about all the good things we do. So, and I know from my own personal experience, it has been the journey to get in touch with my emotional intelligence. That's been the enduring one over the last couple of years.
Thanks for your thoughts there, Jay.
Yeah, can I come in here? Yeah, I'm in conflict a little bit with Jay, never in conflict with anyone really, but I'm a great believer on working on one's strengths. And if you work on your strengths, those terrible weaknesses just go away because you don't recognize them as weaknesses, because your strengths overcome most things. I would say it's really interesting going through that because I was very vague and hairy-fairy in the group with Jay and Hans and Sabs. And at the end, during that time, I actually did write down my 3 strengths and my terrible weakness. And I'd like to relate those, if I may. My greatest strength is my intuition, whatever that may mean. It doesn't mean anything to some people, it means everything to other people. And also EQ, empathetic sort of strength, is very important because you need to communicate at all levels, no matter it's verbally, physically, sort of intuitively, or wirelessly or Wi-Fi-ly. And then, of course, sequencing is very important in one's life. So that's important. Now, my worst thing is my cerebral strength. Okay, so it doesn't pay me to think about anything. Just allow my intuition to do most things. So that's all I'd like to add. So sorry, Jay, I've just sort of different view to you. That's all. Sorry.
Wait till you check out what Bernadette's about to say. I mean, she's gonna slam me in a moment for using the word weakness, I reckon.
No, my strategy's been to work on my strength as a kid. No, actually, I started with what was a little bit on my weakness. Then I focused on that. Then that got me really work on my strength. And lately, maybe as I'm getting older, in a sense, I'm working on what I think is what has been my biggest weakness, which is physical intelligence. Why? Because I realized that without this, I cannot be the better version of myself and be whole. And yeah, my main strength was in the logical, analytical, linguistic, for example. But I now realize that if I don't improve on my physical intelligence, then this is impacting negatively in the sense it is preventing me from having the great and good life that I want to have and that I know I can have.
Thanks for sharing that, Bernadette. I'm a fan of building my strength, but sometimes the biggest thing holding us back is a weakness. And sometimes it's really worthwhile to take time out to work on that weakness. But only you will know that. And perhaps we got to access the deeper down intelligence. Maybe we need to chat with a coach about it. I don't know. But sometimes the chain really does break at the weakest link. And if we know where that weak link is, and it's something like our physical health, well, our physical health shapes all areas of life. So maybe it's worthwhile stopping working on our strengths to fix our weakness. But along with that, we could also, our biggest weakness could be emotional intelligence, somewhere in there, and that could affect us in all areas of life. If someone said listening was an intelligence thing, listening could be a root of a lot of issues. So it's up to you. That's why I asked you guys to write down where you think you're weakest and to write down where you're strongest. Is it really worthwhile working on those biggest weaknesses? Myself, I have admin as one of my biggest weaknesses, and it's not really in the intelligences. The multiple intelligence test goes further, and they have another 9, and in the other 9, they have administration. And Estrelita's here, she can tell you I suck. No, I don't really suck at administration. I did. And I put a lot of work into it, and I got it better. But sometimes we're better off working with other people. I have very low visual, I seem to have low graphic visual intelligence. When I see flyers, I see the information. I don't really see the visual stuff. I don't know. Someone tells me it doesn't look good. I'm like, I don't know. So I asked Yolanda to help out. Yolanda's excellent. I think Yolanda has very high graphic intelligence or visual intelligence. So I reach out to Yolanda. But I wouldn't be able to do that if I hadn't established the strengths, the strength of coaching and training. I never really developed any musical stuff. While I was away somewhere, I learned about how the keyboard's really good. Keyboard's excellent for having peripheral vision and left and right hemispheres of the brain working, and a bit more than that. And I was really empowered, and I totally sucked at it. At the moment, I'm trying to do poetry. So this is one of my favorite books. The Prophet, Khalil Gibran. This was a gift to me, and it sat on my bookshelf for a long time before I ever read it. Then I've always been a Rumi fan, so I got a few Rumi books, as you do, and I got a new one, and I had a bit of a thought. Rather than music, I'll get into poetry. And I would read a little bit of poetry, and I use it, to be mindful. And I thought about writing my own, and I just got myself a little book, because I love books. I read them all. This is all, this is about writing poetry, trying to work on my weakness. But my weakness here isn't poetry. My weakness isn't music. I'm actually doing this because I really want to open up more and more whole brain. I'm not going to make money. I'm not going to have a career as a musician or a poet. Maybe I'll do it in front of the kids. But I'm doing this and the music to help me be stronger with the interpersonal, EQ, SQ, spiritual intelligence work. Miss Yolanda. Oh, Yolanda's just disappeared. Now, Bernadette, are you there? Okay.
Sorry.
And Bernadette's going to tell us what a weakness is. Now, Yolanda?
Yeah, I also just wanted to say, like, physical intelligence, it's not like that. I can pick up stuff very well. The thing is, I'm not interested in physical activities, just like totally disinterested. But as Bernadette said, like, I also have to change that. So would you put that like into weakness? Is it disinterest a weakness maybe? And I'm musical, but I've never learned an instrument, so it's not a weakness, I would say. So it's a kind of a little bit where Harry came from. So
you should see what Bernard has to say about the weakness.
Weakness for me, like when I was younger, most of my focus was on my work. So basically my strength helped me so much. So I was, I was a leader in my field, earn respect and so forth, until I had health issues exactly 10 years early, 10 years ago. Now I'm 50, and I often joke when people ask me, what do you do now? Because I've changed work, and I'm like, and they say, what do you really want to do? What do you do? And I say, well, my choice is I want to do things that make my heart sing and bring me joy. And I know, and I also read some recently, that at 50, I consider the time I have left to live is less than what I have lived already. However, if I am to live up to 100 plus, now the question is, what kind of life would I like to have? So the answer is very simple. I want to be in good health, to now be able to enjoy all the things I've worked so hard for until now. Then when I look at it, we do, in running a business, what we often do at the end of the year, we have our financial statements that give you, your state of affairs at one particular point in time. You have your profit and loss account, and you have your balance sheet. Now, if I look at the balance sheet of my strength, weakness, where I am at now, so for me, it is obvious that physical health, if I don't look after myself, that is definitely gonna impact on what I really would like to live, how I'd like to live for the rest of my life. So that's how 20 years ago, somebody telling me to go to the gym, I'm like, but that's not important, because it doesn't, I don't have to lift things. I could pay people to do that for me. Because of back pain, I couldn't drive. It doesn't matter. I don't drive. I used to fly. Or if I need to drive, I'm taking airport shuttles most of the time. I didn't have to drive. But now that with COVID, I can't fly. We can't even take domestic flights in Australia until recently. So and in some areas where I live, public transportation is really bad. So not being able to drive because of my lack of physical intelligence and lack of spatial intelligence means I cannot have the kind of independent life I want. As simple as that. So that made it, And two, also, it's true that, I now realize how much that the body is a temple of the soul while we are, on this part of our journey. So if I want to have a good quality life, I better look after myself.
If anybody disagrees, do feel free. It's of my opinion that our holistic health, ensuring we can be whole and happy is important, but the overall holistic of our body and mind to be one of the highest values, one of the most important things. And when we're younger, we're often selling our body, selling our time for money, but we can't get that body back, or maybe we can. So putting work into what we put into our mouth, what we do with our body, extremely important. And a lot of people will say that their health is really important and living an optimal life with their health is really important. And you can ask people through NLP, we can ask people and figure out their values. But just because everyone has a high value or says it's a high value, it doesn't necessarily mean they act that way. Yeah. And for the NLPers in the house, if you're asking someone what they value, and they say they value health, it doesn't necessarily mean they are doing it on a daily basis. If you are extracting values from someone, like a client, and you're figuring out, you might want to ask something like, as you've been up until this point. Okay, so as you've been, what's been most important to you about life? Or as you've been, what's been most important to you? And that, as you've been, gets a more accurate answer than, what's important to you. There's so many people that, let's just take some rather large people. You get rather large people, you say, what's important to you? And they say health. But their weight's out here. So, as you've been, what's really important to you? As you've actually been, and they'll tell you, a different answer comes out. If you look at your top 3 strengths, which of those, if worked on, would have the greatest impact in your life? So the multiple natures intelligence test, these are really wonderful for people that are, in my model of the world, changing career, or you're not sure if your career is right for you. If this is you, if you're not sure about what's next, don't see a coach like me, do something like this. Contact us, get in touch with Dr. Preet and run through this with him. He'll take you through it. But the thing is it'll, as I mentioned, it's computer plus a live human. Computer plus human. I hear very often someone's done like a Myers-Briggs test. Now, Myers-Briggs tests are 4 meta programs, and the first one is introversion, extroversion. And a lot of people do these tests and they think they're an extrovert or an introvert, which is totally okay. And you're probably right to think that if you've done one of these tests online. However, it's not as simple as that. Not to mention what kind of questions get the introvert or extrovert answer. I mean, what you do on the weekend could be quite different to during the week. And some of these tests will give you extrovert or introvert, introversion, extroversion, but in reality, you could be in the middle. But do you ever hear anyone says, I'm an EI? No. They say I'm ENFT, that they rattle off 4 letters, but in reality, they could be 50%, 50%, 50%, 50%. That's reality, but in the tests, you can't, because the tests have to tell you you're E or an I. So the percentage is also important. I've got a test, I made it myself about a decade ago, and on my test, which is free, it'll give you the percentage. It'll give you the actual percentage. Just like the multiple natures test with Preet, it'll give you a percentage, and you actually work with Preet to figure out what the percentage really is.
Having been an advanced MBTI practitioner, you do get a percentage if you use the test at the appropriate test, because that terminology that you're thinking of is called how differentiated you are, all right? And it is well covered within the professional level when you operate with MBTI. So you were doing a little bit of injustice to the to what it actually does. When it's,
I think it's beautiful, but the test needs more justice, and there's so many ones online that just pop out these letters without the percentage rates. The percentages are incredibly important.
They are. They're dead right. That's what I was going to, and I reiterate that, knowing where you sit and how easily you can actually understand how your personality changes in circumstances, which is what happens. So thank you for the moment to say that. All right.
Yeah, you're right. Bernadette, the online ones don't. Mine does. I wrote it myself, and I'll write more in future. And maybe William's written some as well. Because Myers-Briggs is 4 meta programs, and in NLP we have about 50, give or take. And often you get DISC, which is a combination of a couple. But anyway, point being, don't just do the test and limit yourself. We are actually limitless beings. You were put on this planet and maybe it was to do something big. Or maybe it was to meet someone and you inspired them and they, something that changed the course of humanity. We only live once. We only live once. So it would be such a pity to be limited by a small belief like, I can't. Yeah. It would be such a pity to live our lives believing we couldn't do something because of a small mental block.
Boom! You made it here! Good on you. Make sure you click the subscribe button below and check out the playlist at the end. If you'd like to come along to our Sunday sessions where we host a live free Q&A for our students and members, you're welcome. I'll see you there.